Testing one, two, three, testing. How's it going, everybody? Thank you for joining us today on our wonderful stream. This is Josh, Senior Community Manager on Blanko's Block Party, and I'm joined here with two special guests today, James and Chris. Hello, welcome to our community. Could you please explain who you are and why I'm so excited to be here today?
Oh, well, I have no idea why you'd be excited to see us, but hey, I'll go with it. That sounds good to me. My name's James Groman, and anyone that doesn't know, I've been around for a long time, but I'm a toy designer by trade. Uh, Grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, always sculpted and drew and watched monster movies, and then at one point wanted to start sculpting and drawing the things that I saw in the monster movies. And I wanted to start creating my own creatures and characters, and went to art school here in Cleveland. It's Cleveland Institute of Art, which I teach at now. I teach one class in the illustration department a week, and got hired right out of college into the toy industry. I wanted to go make movies and stuff like that, but I got a toy job right out of college. Ended up designing Mad Balls right out of school, which was amazing. But I also worked on Care Bears, Strawberry Shortcake, My Pet Monster, and stuff like that while I worked at American Greetings. Freelance for a number of years doing model kits. Me and Chris were just talking about it, where I actually did a couple of Godzilla kits back in the day, since Godzilla is going to be the center of our attention for most of this of our discussions. But went after those jobs like gangbusters. I just wanted to do those jobs so bad. So I hounded the companies that had the Godzilla license just so I could do these two model kits. Since they are one of my favorite characters of all time, film characters. And one of the kits is based on the 1954 version of Godzilla, which is the very first film. And it's the first film I saw. It's still my favorite, and it's still my favorite suit design for Godzilla. So it was awesome to get to work on him. I went to Hasbro for a few years, worked on Star Wars, got to go out to Skywalker Ranch a few times, which was, being a Star Wars fan, of course, that was amazing to be able to do that. And I ended up leaving Hasbro to go back to Cleveland. They're in Rhode Island, went back to Cleveland to work for the same company, American Greetings, again on Mad Balls. They were reviving a lot of the old brands, and they were bringing some of the old team back together. And me and my wife still had a lot of family here in Cleveland, so we came back. I worked there for a while, and then started to do my own stuff, and that started to take over every waking hour. Anytime I was not drawing Care Bears, I was coming home and working on my own stuff and designing my own toys. And I did a toy for Lulubelle Toys called Rotten Rex, which was it ended up being a large, like 12-inch rotting zombified dinosaur, and was very popular. Was nominated for a Toy of the Year award when it first came out. And then that just led to all these other figures that I've been working on to this day. The next one up was King Corpse, which did win Toy of the Year Designer Toy Award. Kaiju Killer, both of these, like Kaiju Killer and King Corpse, were both done for Instinct Toys, which have been partners of mine on a number of projects. And I love them. They're in Japan. And Kaiju Killer won 2 Designer Toy Awards, which I'm very, very proud of. So that's it. To this day, I've got a sculpt down on my stand that I can't talk about that I'm working on. I did a Man-Thing figure with Marvel's Man-Thing character that was just in the Werewolf by Night movie on Disney Plus. Not that version of it. I did my own version of Man-Thing, and that was done. It's done very well for Mondo, and we are talking about a number of other projects, and one of them is I'm going to be starting that in the next week or so. So we've got a bunch of stuff planned. So yeah, things are looking good. Hope to keep sculpting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, James. There's so much there for us to take in as well. Thank you. I really do love it. I love it. I love it. Love it. Chris.
Well, right on cue. All the motorcycles are outside and all the cars are flying by, so that's why I was muting for a bit. But yeah, no, thanks, Josh, and it's great to be here with James. My name is Chris Mowry. I'm a creative manager for Toho International. For those of you that don't know, Toho is the company who owns Godzilla, who has made these Godzilla movies for going on 70 years now. Before that, I worked in video games for about 10 years, and then actually for a comic book company, IDW Publishing, in San Diego, my hometown. Go Padres. Please go Padres. I worked for them for about 11 and a half years, and in that time was able to write for different IP like Transformers, Ninja Turtles, but more importantly, Godzilla. And because I kind of was there and I knew a ton about Godzilla, kind of more than some of the editors, I was working with Toho a lot on just getting storylines approved, or kind of debating and arguing. It's kind of a bad word choice to use, but because they're always easy to work with, but fighting, I guess you could say, for like, this is a cool idea. I know it may go against brand, but let's use this. But then at one point, like almost 4 years ago now, Toho reached out to me and asked if I would like to come work for them. And that was a very, very quick decision to make, probably the fastest decision ever. So yeah, I moved up here to LA with my sleepy dog Peanut here.
Hey, Peanut.
Hi, Bubba. Nope, no kisses. So moved up here, and then now, my job is primarily kind of overseeing the brand, if you will. So that includes product development. Was working on marketing and our social media for a while. Thankfully, we've brought on more people, so the workload is lightening a bit, but it's still fun, working on projects like this with you all. And yeah, as James knows, I'm a big fan of
There
his.
we go.
I've got my Diceratops here, so yeah, James is awesome, and I couldn't was really happy to hear that when we first started this project. I think it just came out like in a meeting. They're like, yeah, so we got this artist, James Groman, working on this. I was like, yes, okay, yeah, that's it. Like, nobody else. Like, let's go. Let's start working on this. So,
yeah, I heard you were an advocate for me, so I greatly appreciate that.
It's more of a fanboy, I guess you could say. Yeah. I'm a Madballs kid. That's why when I first met you, I was like, no, get out of here. What? Okay.
Thank you for that so much. I kind of wanted to dive into some of like the passion behind Godzilla before we kind of get into showing the meat to all the players. For those of you who are just joining us, the stream is kind of going around the whole ideation process of the Blanko and sharing some of the concept images with everybody here, which is why we have James and Chris with us, so it's super exciting. But I just wanted to kind of discuss the passion behind Godzilla, right? Like, what about Godzilla really made you love Godzilla, and then lead into this, like, take Godzilla, make it into a toy, or take Godzilla and work into comics? Like, I wanted to talk to both of you about that as well.
Yeah, I think Godzilla was actually kind of a transition from my favorite film's King Kong, favorite film of all time. So if you're a King Kong fan, more likely you're going to be a Godzilla fan. But I was really into dinosaurs first off when I was a kid. And just because they were like living dragons, they were like something that was unreal and actually existed. And they're large and powerful. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of kids respond to. So that, of course, led to when I saw Godzilla on the TV screen for the first time in black and white. I think I only had a black and white TV, but yeah, when he came on, it was just logical. Of course, I was going to fall in love with this guy. He was even bigger than a dinosaur. And then with later films, he became kind of like this protector of Earth and kind of like took on these other monsters. And, it's like a combination of big time wrestling and monsters and dinosaurs. And I mean, who isn't going to love that? And the whole cast of Toho characters just were so imaginative, and so the designs were so cool. And you know what? I love the fact that they were guys in suits. I knew it the minute I saw them. They were a guy in a suit, but I actually love that they were able to do somersaults and slam into each other and everything. So it was just like just totally exciting brand for me. And it led to me I wanted to have one. Maybe there were not a lot of Godzilla toys when I was a kid that were in the States. So the only way I could get one is to sculpt one for myself, So I would sculpt one, and then I said, you know what? Do I want to do Rodan next, or do I want to come up with my own monster that's going to fight Godzilla? So I think it just led to me wanting to, take my own creativity and go and start to make my own creations.
Cool. Yeah, that's super exciting. Again, like the idea, giant dinosaur battling and then, protecting the earth is really cool. And I would have to agree as to the love of Godzilla for that as well. Yeah. Chris?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, James and I were talking earlier. He's got that 1933 King Kong armature behind him there. Like that movie to me is probably, it's my favorite monster movie, I guess you could say, because there's something about Kong that's just so, you can relate to it. I definitely, like, my love life, I relate to Kong in that sense. It's just like never works out, the best of intentions, everything else, but
Blondes?
What was that?
Always blondes?
No, actually brunettes. But yeah, but then the fear of heights maybe came from that. I don't know. I don't want to fall off a building either. But the first Godzilla movie I saw was when I was 5 years old, and it was just like, as James said too, like I was into dinosaurs, and born and raised in San Diego, so sharks and whales and dinosaurs, like that was it for me. That was like my world. Started to get into comic books around that time too. Definitely didn't understand the characters, but seeing that first Godzilla movie, it was Godzilla versus Gigan, which turns 50 this year, which means I'm gonna turn 50 relatively soon. Also, seeing that first movie and knowing, again, to James' point, that these were actors in suits, it was easy for me to kind of emulate. So I just kind of started going crazy with whatever toys I had and kicking furniture over and all that. And it kept turning into like this obsession. And every time there was something on, and it's unfortunate. I say this a lot. Like, it's unfortunate that I think kids these days don't have, even though there's streaming channels and everything else, there was nothing like having to make time and plan out a Saturday afternoon when a local station would show like these monster movie marathons.
Oh yeah.
It was just something like, I don't know if that's like that lightning in a bottle, that's just everything at once. And so you've got the character, you've got this, but it was Godzilla that exposed me to, Godzilla are those films and those marathons that exposed me to things like another great 1954 movie, Creature from the Black Lagoon, like them, like 54 to me is like the best year ever. Like there's those three movies, Godzilla, them, and Creature, fantastic. But it really just kind of built up over the years, and the character always stuck with me. And there was always, you'd see something there every now and then, and there's a lot of import shops in San Diego at the time. So like I would every so often see something, and it wasn't really until like 1984 when the character had its 30th anniversary and products were being imported from Japan. And then we had that, the Godzilla 1985 movie that came out. All of a sudden there was just like this influx of products. And so it was sort of like, just as the desire and everything started to wane down, I was like, oh, here's another shot. It's throughout my life, it's just been this shot in the arm. And then, when it came to comic books, it was, I don't know, we at that point at IDW had like rights to all the different monsters. So the series I wrote, I just wanted to kind of have this, like, again, going back to comic books, just like this freak of the week kind of feel to it. So I was like, okay, this issue, we're going to throw Mega Garrison. This next issue, it's going to have, King Caesar. And then just, a very loose plot line, but just, if anything, to have just some cool monsters in it and have like some fun action.
Super awesome. Yeah.
I have to go back and find those issues that you wrote.
Oh, I'll send them to you. There you
go. Yeah, that's actually really cool. It's kind of crazy for me hearing this from the both of you, because I'm a lot younger, right? I was born in 1990. But my grandfather used to be a toy maker, and he has this obsession with toys. So he was really the one who brought me into the idea of Godzilla. He used to buy me a lot of dinosaur toys, whatever he thought was an impressive way a toy was made. He would buy it and then bring it over to me, and he'd be like, play with this, see how you like it. And I remember growing up, I had quite a few Godzilla toys just from my grandfather, always just like, this seems like it'd be fun and exciting. Here, play with this. This seems like it's fun and exciting. Play with this. So Godzilla definitely has an impact in my life as well in that aspect, right? It was like the first set of toys I've ever owned were Godzilla toys that my grandfather got his hands on, because he used to work closely with Takara and Toei, I think it was, when they were separate back in the day. I don't know when that was, but But
Nice.
yeah, he loves showing me those business cards. So I kind of want to jump into the concepts here real quick. So we have this little slideshow created with some of the concepts that you came up with, James, and this was super exciting for me to
Oh
look
boy.
at. I wanted to know about some of the challenges that you encountered with some of the design around these concepts, because they are obviously so far from what a Blanko is, right? Blanko is a little man, almost very human-like, versus this like breakdown that you did with the model for a very Godzilla-esque um, breakdown for some of these skeletons here, or some of these like body styles.
Yeah, I guess you hit it on the head. The challenge was, and it was first me kind of feeling my way through Blanko's world. How far can we take the design? How much of a new model can we build, or how much we needed to adhere to the actual Blanko's blank form? So most of the time when I'm concepting, if I'm given a toy concept and I have to do some drawings to try to make it work, I do this thing where there's the safe design that, hey, this is giving them exactly what they want, and I'm adhering, trying not to break any rules, trying to stick to the parameters, trying to keep it inexpensive and everything. And then I'll do like what would be design number 2, taking a little bit further, maybe taking some chances, doing some things that maybe aren't what you first expect to see from the toy. I might take it all the way up to, if I do 10 concepts, you'll get 10 moves away where this is like radical. It's like there's no way they're going to do this. And sometimes you end up at that, someone says they want to take a risk, or they're able to take a risk, and you end up with that design number 10 that's just way out there, and it's something really unexpected, really different, really fun. So yeah, the images that you showing the images right now?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, they are kind of showing exactly that I went right at the, how can I take, knowing that he was going to have to be simpler because he was going to be built CG as a model, and rigged and everything, that I stuck close to more geometric, simple shapes. But those first initial designs are very much inspired by, one of them's inspired by the Showa Godzilla, which is the more playful. I felt like that made sense when he was more kid friendly, a little bit more more of the defender of Earth. He kind of almost had a Muppety look to him. I think that just seemed to make sense, since the game is very playful. It's very non-violent. It's all about just having fun. So that one made sense. I wasn't sure at one point, hey, are we going to want to be doing the new TriStar Godzilla, or the Sony Godzilla, the legendary Godzilla, so of course trying a few different versions. And there's one that is based on, the Legendary Pictures Godzilla as well, just thinking that maybe they might want a more updated design. So all those things went into play as I was concepting, because I was like kind of throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick. And I wanted Mythical to have a lot of concepts to react to. The key is you don't want them to look at, a couple drawings and say, you know what, you didn't get it. This is so far off. We don't see anything we can work with. You want to give them so much that there's going to be something in there. And sometimes you find combinations. It's like, hey, the way you treated the fins in this concept would work really well, but we need to go back to that original Blankos form and use that. So yeah, like it was a fun part of the process, starting with a more realistic looking Godzilla and slowly kind of whittling it back to where we're more in Blankos, in the Blankos world. And it gives you a chance to get all those ideas out of your system and stuff. But I think initially when we first sat down and looked at that initial first set of concepts, it kind of dawned on us that, we're getting a little too far away from the world of Blankos, and being able to work with all the accessories that are part of the game, wearing hats and carrying, accessories and things like that. You kind of have to stick to that form.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think, kind of looking at some of these designs, kind of talking back to the whole idea of the keeping to the geometric shapes. It was just looking at the joints and like the placement of some of these shapes. It's just so reminiscent of toys, right? Those older like plastic toys, which I absolutely loved about some of these concept designs. Chris, I don't know. I may have stolen that from you, Chris, but I don't know. You know what? I wanted to ask you, what were your absolute favorite parts of these like early designs as well?
I mean, the obvious answer is just going to be, seeing James working on stuff. So that was what I loved first and foremost. Um, being taking it to the boring legal side of things and business side of things, I will say, like, the agreement is for what we call classic Godzilla. So that just covers the Toho films and the Toho designs. So unfortunately, something like the design of the legendary films Godzilla, that immediately, we had to move away from and really then try to focus on, like, okay, what is it about the classic Godzilla that we need to work with? But even to get to that point, that's like, again, like the 70th anniversary of the character is going to be in 2024. You've got, almost 30 films, including like some of the animated films that we've done, over 30 films of these different designs. So like, how do you take Godzilla and then make just a kind of an all-encompassing everything kind of design, because people have their favorites. People love the Showa era from 54 to 75. People love the Heisei era from 84 to 95, and then we got Millennium and Reiwa, Shin Godzilla, like all these different ones. So how do you just come up with Godzilla as a character? And it was sort of seeing what James was doing, really like whittling all that down into, okay, here's some basic characteristics. Here's 3 rows of dorsal fins. Here's this many toes, and should the eyebrows look like this? And it was tough. Like, I hate giving feedback, and like especially critical feedback on somebody who I'm a big fan of. But the easy part was, okay, no legendary Godzilla. Now let's focus on the classic.
And I love the feedback, because it's like it's a collaboration. And
Mm-hmm.
I always tell my students that when they finish an illustration, just make sure that you're like, or even concepting the illustrations, showing their work to other people and getting input from other people, because sometimes you get so near and dear to something that you can't see the forest for the trees or whatever that the saying
Yeah.
would be. But yes, just having that input helps it just become something that appeals to more people,
Mm-hmm.
more compelling.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually kind of funny. I saw a comment in the chat here, because I kind of wanted to segue into this next part, was about Mothra, and the concepting around Mothra, which I'm super excited to show. Let me get that up on screen for us. Like, wow. The um, I will say, I think these concepts really blew me away. I just kind of wanted to talk to you both about the process of how we got about to this, and which one's your favorite.
Um, well, yeah, Mothra, of course, thinking of the game and the characters that would be perfect for the game, Mothra is like so colorful and is definitely not an anti-hero, but Mothra's a hero,
Mhm.
and uh, so just knowing she had to be in the game just inspired playing around with, and we had solved so many problems with Godzilla. She came a lot easier because all of a sudden we knew where we needed to be with Godzilla, and then and that was kind of the plan. Now that I'm jogging my memory, that we said it's like, let's solve Godzilla and then we'll move on to the other characters, because why throw a bunch of concepts that are totally in the wrong direction for every monster and stuff. So these first 3, I'll tell you, as I started to play around with the little legs, thinking of this character walking through the game and then fluttering up in the air as part of the gameplay, I love A. I think it's like, it just is fun.
Mhm.
Of course, C is the closest to what she might look like in an animated movie or something like that. But there's something about, I started to, all of a sudden I'm wrapping my head around what they have to be to play in the game. That one just seemed to hit for me. Just knowing somehow we were going to have to get those 3 arms in there, knowing that was going to be an issue still, but just did not want to just make her a 2 legs, 2 arms character. So I took the chance and kept the 6 arms.
Yeah, and I have to agree that A was my favorite because, and I'm sure we'll get into this in a little bit, but from what I understood, once we had like the Blankos, I guess the term would be rig, the character model, it was a tough thing to kind of adapt a lot of these different characters to that model. Mothra fit because of the 6 legs. So it was like, yeah, okay, we could be flexible with that one. Some other ones, as we'll see, in a few, it was a lot tougher, and unfortunately they didn't quite make it off Monster Island. But yeah, Mothra was just, to James' point, such a vibrant character too. Like the color palette's like way different. Like she stands out like very well. And yeah, I'm excited to see like pretty much what people think of that character.
She seems to be the favorite of, it's my wife's favorite for sure, but it's like anyone I've shown her to, then she is everyone's. She really respond to her. Very appealing. Uh, but then we did come up with that kind of cheat where the arms are printed on the front of the chest, so we still got our 6 arms on there, which was really great.
Yep.
So I'm glad we arrived at that.
Well, yeah, I think Mothra really fits well into Blanko's universe, the color. But it's also there's an appeal to the symmetry that Mothra brought with its design, and like I don't know what it was, but it just like everything looks so good on Mothra. Really made it stand out. And I guess a big part of it would be the fact that it's got those massive wings, right? Like on the Blanko as well. I think those are super exciting to have and see. So, that could have been a part of why maybe there's some bias to the design, but I think I also love Mothra as one of the original monsters as well. So it's just Mothra's such a great character.
And I also think of thinking of the gameplay. I don't know how much of their actual powers may play into the gameplay and what they're capable of doing during the course of the game. But I kept thinking of Mothra as she's running through the game, just this like particles of glowing dust are coming off her while she's running. I think that would be just beautiful.
Actually, kind of talking into that, I wanted to segue into some of the accessories, right? Talking about wings and like all the other stuff. Because from one of your original designs were the little dump truck slippers, roller skates, right? That players were able to buy. So these accessories I thought were really cool, right? We see a helicopter crane, the tractor trailer skateboard. What was just like some of the inspiration behind some of these, and like how do you feel they fit into the game? And I guess my favorite question to ask for the both of you would be which one should have made it into the game as well, right? On top of the dump trucks, roller skates.
Uh, yeah, it's like having, once again, I've worked on, I think we ended up doing, I designed 8 characters for the original release of Blankos. So, and I also did some of the accessory packs, designed a lot of the accessories and stuff for some of the characters that I worked on. So I started to have a little bit of a feel for what was going to be desirable to go along with Godzilla and some of the other characters. So this one was really fun because first thing is like taking, the game is fun and the game, it's very playful, and it's block party, right? They're all going to a party, they're on skateboards and stuff like that. So what would be the equivalent of a skateboard in these giant monsters universe? I'm sorry I didn't put a surfboard in there where use a big ore ship or something and surfboard, but it was kind of that thinking went into it, like how can we make these fun in their world? And I think that was actually done in that there's a movie, Monsters vs. Aliens, where there's a scene where the one character actually puts her feet, she's this giantess, I can't remember the character's name, puts her feet into these cars or trucks or something, and she goes skating through the city, and it just seemed to make sense to me. And then the helicopter, always knowing that you want the characters to be able to jump onto a roller skate or a skateboard, but also it's good. Like I've designed, I think we have a Boss Dino as a character I worked on. That's part of Blankos. When he needs to fly, a little pterodactyl comes down and picks him up and carries him. So I thought, of course, use a sky crane that might come along and just pick up one of the characters and fly them off. But if you were to ask me which accessory I'd like to have in the game, it would be the Monster Zero little flying saucer accessory, because anyone that's a Godzilla fan is going to recognize that right away. They're the coolest, kind of retro looking. They almost look like they're made out of ceramic. These flying saucers that are in the film, and they literally do put out a little like kind of a tractor beam, and they lift Godzilla and Rodan up out of I can't remember the name of the lake that's in the movie, but they lift them up out of that. And I thought, if one of those is flying along and carrying Godzilla or carrying one of the other characters, and I thought that's speaking to the Godzilla lore that's that we're bringing into the game. It's not just these giant size accessories for a giant monster, but there's things that actually might speak to the movies a little bit. I think it's the Kilax, right? They're the villains in that, or is that
the Exilians?
Exilian?
The ones with the visors.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's because that one's my favorite too. Like, I think, to your point, just having it show up, putting that little orb, like little tractor beam orb, carrying them off, like that would have been super cool. And plus that's one of my favorite movies anyways in the franchise. So it just something about it is just so like 60s sci-fi cool. It's just,
yeah, exactly. And just having those, I mean, they could even just follow the character around through the game, or just come flying to a scene or something like that. I think, yeah, whenever you can bring that stuff in from the movies, I think that would be a plus.
Super awesome. I was just thinking on the idea of like it acting like a jetpack, where it's just kind of like hover, but it's like, not attached. It's just hovering over the shoulder. Anytime you wanted to take off, it just bloopy, take you away. Would be really fun.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely exciting. I mean, it was so great taking a look at some of these concepts. I kind of wanted to transition into this initial set of renders that you had shared with me. It was that set A of the renders. I kind of wanted to ask you, and just a caveat to all our community, there is a golden Blanko here that unfortunately didn't make it. I believe this was the King Ghidorah, the initial render for that, but kind of taking a look at these original renders of Godzilla and Mothra, and wanted to ask how we went from that concept to here, right? And what the process was getting to here. Like, did we feel like anything stood out about these designs? Where we felt improvement could go in terms of like, or in terms of which direction we can go for improvement and stuff like that.
Yeah, this one is, when I was talking about, you take something to the 10th degree, where you're going for, going into crazy town, trying some things that maybe might be more unexpected. This is totally bringing it back. This is where, at this point, we're wondering if we'd even have the ability to build fins and wings and other like extra details onto the characters. So it was an attempt to just see how compelling and interesting we make the characters if we're just going to go straight at that Blanko form. So you can see that, we have the wings are actually wrapped as a UV map onto the character. They do not protrude. They're not an extra part. The wings on Mothra, the wings on King Ghidorah, Godzilla's fins, and even the tail, so he is, you don't quite get the silhouette of Godzilla, which is the downside. And but we had to try it. We had to go there. King Ghidorah was, we tried so many things to make those three heads work. I think the one that we're looking at here, this iteration of how to do the three heads, as like one head is mapped on each part of the cube to form the three, I kind of thought was an interesting path to go. But I really thought you totally lost a lot of the nature of the character by getting rid of the two tails and the big giant golden wings and everything. So yeah, the trouble and why this character didn't make it in was solving that three head problem was really, an issue.
Yeah, James nailed it. It just when mentioning like the silhouette, whenever we do any kind of new product and we're dealing with like a new licensee or something, I always say, like, we're so lucky to have a character that's recognizable by a silhouette. I always kind of refer to the characters as something like Batman. You see the ears and the shape of the cape and everything. You know who that is. So with Godzilla, you see those dorsal fins, you see the tail, you see the stance. And you know exactly what character that is. King Ghidorah, absolutely the same thing. You have a very long-necked, three-headed, space dragon with the two tails. How do you convey that in this sort of this flat rendered art to match the character model? I actually thought that the mapping around the cube was a pretty cool approach to it. The biggest problem was the arms. Once, if you have to keep the arms on there, that no longer is that character. Ghidorah's got wings, no arms. So it was a matter of like kind of saying, all right, hey, as we're exploring the addition of wings and things that we can add on to this model, can you take the arms off? And I believe that the answer was like, we really can't, because you have to be able to do certain things. And I think a couple other renditions after that, it got to the point where it was like, okay, Mothra we can do that with, fantastic. Godzilla, we can add protruding dorsal fins and a tail. That makes that character a lot more recognizable as it is. Same thing with Mothra. Ghidorah, unfortunately, just can't have the arms and wings. It's like a gargoyle or something at that point. So yeah, unfortunately, but we tried really hard with this one. I'm trying to think.
We tried Rodan too, and
that's what I was gonna say. I couldn't remember if we are gonna have anything with that. And with Rodan, we were trying to figure out how to turn the arms into the wings so that it was kind of like the wings would be like folded in, and this character moves around like that. But Rodan, I remember being. I think Ghidorah kind of got scrapped, and we're like, okay, yeah, we can't do that one. But everybody wanted to do Rodan. I think it was just the color pattern, your design on it. Like that one was tough to say no to, but it would look like a gargoyle at that point. And,
yeah, it really was.
Kind of going off of that, I know it was. I mean, again, there were like some other renditions that we have in here. We didn't put in Rodan, but we do have the other versions of King Ghidorah, and I kind of wanted to talk to that because this next image we have here was some of that fun take on having the silhouette as well, right? Like, I know I've done 3D modeling courses like in college, and I remember one of the most important lessons I had learned was making a unique silhouette as well. Like, that was one of the important things, like making sure your character that you were creating or whatever it was had a great silhouette or unique silhouette. So I kind of wanted to jump into this, and this one I loved, and it kind of blew me away, was the idea of like almost like a Blanko inside a Godzilla suit. James, could you kind of talk to this, like where this inspiration come from?
Well, it was. I remember trying to think of all the various ways we could kind of like have fun with it. This one came out of let's have fun. Let's have fun with the characters. Maybe they aren't, giant monsters per se, but children possibly playing the role of the monsters and make it even more playful. If I remember right, I can't remember the team that we had a brainstorm with that was at Mythical, but there was a gentleman in that brainstorm that I think might have thrown this idea out, where it was the idea of what if it's a person in the costume, and I thought there was something there that made a lot of sense to me, and kind of thought, it's worth a try. Once again, it's worth, and then trying to work with Godzilla's neck. I think that was another, because the one where the neck is built out of the Blanko's head is the one that does not work on this board at all. My favorite, of course, is the third one on the bottom, because it looks like a kid in a costume or a kid in PJs or something, so it kind of, the initial germ of the idea came out of this brainstorm, and then I just started throwing variations of a theme at it, variations of that, of what is going to be a cool design, what's going to make sense. Seeing that first design and going, nope, that ain't it. Let's move on to the next one. So yeah, and I thought these were really fun. As a toy designer, this could be a whole toy line. So Chris, let's could lead to a whole nother brainstorm. I think these are really cute.
Oh, definitely. I think the third is my favorite out of them. To James's point, like the neck, it's just, there's certain things about the character, like if it doesn't look right. Like it throws everything off. And yeah, so obviously like the first concept, you know, we couldn't do that. It just looks like he swallowed something, you know. The second one, just having the head on top of the head, just kind of felt a little off. But the third one was, you know, to James' point, just it looked like a kid in a costume. It looked just it was just a lot of fun. It looked like something I would buy that costume if it was out there, you know.
Yeah, there were some concepts where we actually had the kids in jackets that had the patterns of of King Ghidorah on there, and patterns of Godzilla's skin. And then they had a baseball cap that has the Godzilla face. So we really tried some really fun stuff in this direction. And you know, I guess I kind of forgot, now that everything's kind of coming to fruition, the characters are getting released and everything, I forgot how much work we did in all these different directions to kind of arrive where we did.
I kind of want to ask, because I saw it in that share that you shared to me for the concepts. It almost seemed like there was inspiration for the Blanko that was inside this Godzilla suit to be its own Blanko. I kind of wanted to ask you, because I want to move on to this next image. Who is Johnny Toho?
I hope he's not an offensive character. I hope he doesn't hurt anyone. It's just I love, like I said when we were first started talking, the whole idea of these. There were guys in these suits, you know, and they're celebrities. You know, they go to shows and they sign photos of themselves and everything, and so they were very well known. And the whole idea that these creatures are all brought to life with an actor inside, I wanted to kind of pay, you know, some kind of attention or respect to that with this character. So the idea of this, I thought almost of this character being one character that can put on any one of the suits, can put on, you know, King Ghidorah or Rodan or Godzilla or whatever character you want to play with. And that's part of the gameplay is maybe he's hunting down the suit and he puts it on and he has all the powers of that specific creature. So yeah, and I just come up with a design. Like I said, I just tried a few things using the inspiration of some of the photos I used to see of these guys with the costume, probably, you know, sweating their butts off inside these costumes, having to pull their heads out and get a breath. And I'm not sure who this gentleman is in this photo, Chris.
So that's Haru Nakajima, who was the first actor to play Godzilla.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, and the headband I thought was kind of iconic. Is something I thought of these guys, probably to keep their hair out of their eyes or to keep the sweat off their brow or whatever, but I kind of incorporated that. And then, you know, thought maybe there'd be some Toho branding in there, you know. So
well, I love the logo on the chest. I think it's really cool. I do.
So just try it. Just gonna give it a try.
Which, yeah, I mean, which then turned into us saying like, well, we don't really license Toho as a company out, so that's unfortunately why we had to cancel this one. But I kind of feel like this character is then what kind of turned us back into the direction of just doing the characters as the Blankos, like not having the person in the suit. It was sort of like, okay, well, great idea, like this is fun, you know, and it's homage to these like tokusatsu actors, but let's just focus on the characters again and get those right. Because I do remember there was a I don't know what the term would be, but we went back to it. We kind of went back to square one and like, okay, now let's do Godzilla, let's do Mothra, let's do, you know, somebody else, which I think we'll talk about.
Yeah, I actually kind of wanted to talk to that. Yeah, no, it's the idea of somebody in a Godzilla suit, because these next iterations here that we have, I kind of want to show the Godzilla and the Mothra here. Let me get that up for our viewers. The Johnny Toho, Mothra, and Godzilla, right? These kind of look like they're very, very close to, almost like closer to what we have right now in terms of Godzilla and Mothra. And I kind of wanted to ask, like you were saying earlier, Chris, this was like almost like a way to go back maybe to the ideation, right? James, Chris, if you guys can weigh in on that as well, because these are really, really cool. I think these look fantastic, the idea of a Godzilla suit or a Mothra suit.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Mothra. That Mothra is really close to what we ended up with, you know, as far as basic proportions. I think it was the first rendering that actually had the arms mapped onto the front of the body, which solved that problem. It's all, as a designer, you're always problem solving. Yeah. Always trying to like, what is the issue? What are the different various ways? Like you can see the two concepts for King Ghidorah here, trying to solve that 3-head situation, even putting them as like mittens on the hands, as the other 2 heads are these little puppets that the character carries around, which would, I'm looking at these would make really cool Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
You know, you're walking down the street like this, as King Ghidorah. But I look at these and they're really fun, and there's nothing better than, even if it's not used, that you can look at it and say that's a fun concept. This would make a great part of the Blankos Art of Blankos concept book.
Yeah.
So, but this Godzilla, yeah, you're starting to get into the range of the proportions of the eyes, the skin detail. Getting that right was important, of course, the skin texture and everything. So this is kind of a step toward our final solution.
Yeah, these again, these looked super super awesome. I really did love the idea of a Blanko and then a monster suit. And again, like I'm reading some of the comments here. It's like the little mittens. Everybody loves the little Ghidorah, the heads. I remember during some of the initial meetings, I was meeting with some of the production team. I was like, can we have, like, if we do Ghidorah, can we have the one goofy head, kind of like that meme that you see everywhere, as like an option? But that would whether or not that would fly with anybody it was something else. But I thought it would be super amusing. And to kind of talk to the next point, I wanted to move into is that final version that we saw for Godzilla Mothra. Like, it really is so much closer to the bodysuit design, and like kind of looking at it now, this Mothra design is pretty much final. The Godzilla is pretty much final with the added fin and the tail.
Yep.
And I guess the biggest thing was, did this design kind of come out of reviewing how Johnny Toho would have looked like with the monster suits, or was this more of, it kind of came in collaboration with, you were working on this and then you were also working on this monster suit idea at the same time?
I think it was that we tried everything, and what we started to key in on, and once again, always going back to what's the core play pattern in the game. And we have to be able to use those accessories and play with the other Blankos. And I don't think there's going to be any, I know with the Blankos, you're able to mix and match colors and things. I don't think they're going to be doing that with the Toho characters. But yeah, it's just I think we tried all these things, and we kind of said, all right, we tried it all. So we're not leaving any stone unturned. We're going to go back to just using that initial Blanko. I look at this and I'm almost like, this is one of the first logical steps as you start the concept. And why didn't we just go with it right out of the chute? But we had to try those other things. You had to see if they was going to work. If we could get closer to, movie perfect versions of them, or close to that, you have to try it. But I was really happy with how it came out. Godzilla having of course, the muzzle that sticks out, protrudes, being like dinosauric or a reptilian. That worried me, making that work with the spherical head. And it was especially with Mechagodzilla, which was a whole issue in itself. I tried so many different ways of how far apart do you put the eyes, and how close together do you put the nostrils, and all that stuff. But I think we arrived at something that made the most of that initial Blanko's form.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Godzilla and Mothra design as well, it almost like really stands out is like the steps that got to here. There's like inspiration drawn from, some of the other previous concept images we saw, some of the initial renders we saw. So it's like super exciting to see like the steps of the final product. And, there was one question asked from the community. How long did this take, right? Starting from the initial talks to the final design and being pushed out.
I don't know, Chris. You could correct me. I think like 4 months.
Things. Yeah, I was gonna say things blur by like so quickly on some of these, but I think it wasn't more than, I wouldn't say it was more than 4 months.
Yeah, I think the first initial concepts that I delivered were like almost not even a month. out. It
Yeah.
was like about a couple of weeks, and I sent in those first initial concepts.
I mean, I remember we were kind of originally gearing for, I want to say, a launch or something right around April
Mm.
of last year. So like we were cooking, So I really think it was only like maybe like 2 to 3 months, really.
Yeah, it could be.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually really impressive. It just like it blows me away.
Yeah,
Yeah, these
it's good feedback, and it's I didn't have too much on my plate at the time, and sometimes I move projects around so I can work on something that's really fun like this. So yeah, I know I just always like to meet the deadlines that are given to me, and I think yeah, and like I said, getting notes back, we were almost having weekly meetings at one point, just to check up on me and keep looking at the designs and stuff. So yeah, it was a nice smooth process, so that helps.
cool.
Yeah, and actually to speak to that too, it was like James had mentioned earlier, like this collaborative feel with everything. So it was great to be able to work with everybody at the same time too. Sometimes on these things, like the licensee or somebody is sort of like this middleman, and someone's playing, telephone operator, and you're trying to, get this message across. But having like all the teams together on the same call just made it a lot easier to say, okay, to James's point about that protruding snout on Godzilla, like, okay, can this be done? Because it really should be done, because just flat, like, it may not look that much like Godzilla. And I think hearing that and knowing what James is capable of doing, that made it easy to give feedback. Is like, okay, well, let's not even go with this like ultra realistic kind of thing, because that's not, it can't happen. So don't even worry about that kind of feedback. Let's just focus on what everyone's comfortable with. Clearly as a licensor, as the owner of Godzilla, we've got our rules and our boundaries. So other than that, like, just kind of like, let's all just keep the foot on the pedal, and I'll be over here to pull the e-brake when we need to or something. But
I kind of wanted to talk to something you had brought up earlier, was the idea of, which Godzilla was, right? Chris, earlier you had mentioned, we couldn't use legendary Godzilla. Any insight you can give maybe to our players for like a little background on the Godzilla that we used, the Mothra we used, which era they're from, because I personally I love the Shin Godzilla, just because it's absolutely insane. Yeah, it is just
Zombie Godzilla.
yeah, it's insane. So if you can like talk to maybe the lore behind where these characters came from, and like what their background is.
yeah, I think, to just touch on the business side of it first, it was, what characters are we going to use? And then it always turns into, okay, what year, what design are we going to use? And something like this, like when you have a character of like Godzilla, like I said before, it's got all these different variations. You kind of just have to focus on, like, okay, here's again the characteristics, the dorsal fins, the toe count has varied over the years. But it comes down to like that scale pattern, like James was saying. You don't want the character to look too much like the Showa films, where he's kind of maybe a little more, not cartoonish, that's probably the worst word, but frog-like or something. Like, Godzilla's tough, he's got to have the snarl to it, and that kind of leads into those like the Heisei films, of the 80s and 90s. And it's sort of like, where's a good fine mix between that? So if I had to guess which one this was, I would say it was probably like a 1968 Godzilla with a 1991 head put onto it. And same thing with Mothra, that character's changed not as much as Godzilla has over the years, but there's been, the wing patterns change, or they're like different additions, like whether that's, if you're ichthyologist or not ichthyologist, why did I say that? Entomologist, that's a bug person, right? Entomologist. Yeah. Thank you. Whatever the fur is called, like on a moth, I think it has a very specific name, but that's changed over the years. So there's characteristics of Mothra that should be met. That is that wing pattern. That is like the overall color scheme is very reminiscent of how the characters appeared. For Mothra is 60 now, I believe. So, that sort of thing. But Mecha Godzilla, I think everybody's favorite is that 74, 75, that Showa era, just the rivets, bolts, this mechanical terror. So that one's probably the easiest to probably describe. It's like, okay, this is everyone wanted to do that one. Let's go with this one.
Yep, kind of has that Captain Nemo kind of feel to it almost.
Yeah.
Rivets and everything.
Yep.
Because we don't have any images of Mechagodzilla, but he definitely came out really cool. And I don't know if we're gonna talk about the packaging at all, but the packaging that they come in was a whole nother pass. And that was really fun because I started looking up reference on the various like hangars or places that Mechagodzilla actually had been in, and what some of those background details were, and they were worked into the packaging. Mothra's, I do believe they still use the Tokyo Tower being bent over in the background.
That's right. Yep.
And Godzilla's just has, of course, a burning metropolis behind him. But the packaging is a little different than the rest of the Blankos. It's a little bit larger and I think wider, bigger vista, allowing for a bigger vista of a background and everything. But they came out really cool.
Yeah, and we will actually be sharing some of that later today because the Blankos Mechagodzilla goes live at 3 today, so that'll be in an hour. For those of you, yeah, it'll only be up for an hour. So make sure you don't miss that if you're trying to participate in that. But the box art does look really cool. We did plan on releasing the box art as soon as we were ready to get those announcements out. So super excited for that. I was looking at it as well. It looks so sick. I kind of wanted to, since oh my gosh, we're already almost at time. Real quick, James, Chris, thank you so much for joining us on stream today. This was super fun. It was super insightful. Being able to share the process and the steps to where we got now to the community is always super exciting. And it's always just fun to have fun content like this for our community. So again, thank you so much for coming out. James, Chris, if you guys want to leave any final messages with our community, where they can find you if they want to follow you for some of your work, or if they want to follow you on social media, now's the time. If you want to drop it in here, give yourself a little shout out.
Oh yeah, and we and Chris were just talking about how I always tell my students to make sure that they have a good website and a good social media presence and everything to help them lead the work. And I have Instagram, well, I have Facebook, Instagram, and a store. And the store kind of acts as a portfolio because there's some things on there that are not for sale, just showing some of my work. But the store is just the James Groman store at oh my gosh, I haven't gone there in a while. But yeah, you just punch in the James Groman store, it'll come up. Big Cartel, that's it. It's hosted by Big Cartel. And then Instagram is just jgroman60. And you can find me on Facebook, just punch in James Groman Design LLC.
Awesome, Chris.
Yeah, and I'm on Facebook pretty rarely, I guess. Yeah, I definitely post on Instagram, so a lot of that stuff just goes there. But yeah, if you want to follow me, and definitely you're going to see nothing but pictures of Peanut. She'll be on there all the time. But you follow me like at Cosmow, COSMOW. But you could also follow Godzilla on the official Toho accounts, which is at Godzilla_Toho. Yeah, and if you want to see more of Peanut, we do a whole like YouTube show called Godzilla Chomp that's on the official YouTube channel that you can watch. That we're gearing up for season 2, actually. So
yeah. Awesome. Again, thank you two so much for joining us on stream. This was absolutely fantastic. Loved having y'all. And look forward to seeing some more cool things in the future as well.
Yeah, hoping we get to do some more characters. So
absolutely. Alrighty, again, big shout out to our community. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was absolutely fantastic. Y'all have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you. Take care.
Go get that Mechagodzilla
in 1 hour. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.